Hey, this is Rob Anspach, and welcome back to another edition of E-Heroes. For those keeping count, this is episode 359. And my next guest hasn't been on the podcast since episode 81 back in April of 2020. So
Oh,
5 years. And let me tell you, he's one of the hardest working podcasters around with multiple shows. And it all was because he created systems that would allow his full-time business, a mortgage company, to run seamlessly while he does podcasting. So welcome back, Ed. And for everybody out there, it's Ed Parcaut. Look him up, and he's awesome.
right. So I'm Ed Parcaut everywhere, by the way, if you're looking for me. Easiest way, edparcaut.com. All right, you're right. But since I didn't, so 5 years ago, in like 2020, man, so I've been doing my radio show since 2018. And that is how I got into talking. And that's how I realized I had a deep voice. I had no idea I had a deep voice. And people would want to hear people with a deep voice. Gilbert Godfrey, unfortunately, had a problem. Nobody wanted to listen to him. But, that's how that works. But, and from the radio show, I got into podcasting because I'm like, what do I do with this radio after we're done talking on air to 51 to 71,000 listeners? What do I do with it? And at that point, they were like, just upload it. And then I started with SoundCloud because there wasn't Libsyn at the time and all the other ones that were out there. And that's slowly, then I did video, added video to the YouTube channel with the same radio stuff. And then eventually we have StreamYard, we have Zoom, we have all these different ways to do it now that we didn't have 5 years ago.
Mhm.
And
You know,
and I've been through it all.
when I started this podcast in 2018, I didn't want to go through all those programs, and pay this and that and everything else. And I thought, I didn't know how long this podcast was going to last. So I created a website, put everything on there, filtered the audio streams out. And so I pay for the bandwidth myself. And no, then I started putting the videos on YouTube. But, you know, at the very beginning, it was like, okay, people are listening to the audio. This is great. I want them to listen to the audio first. And then I would upload the video. And I'm like, good Lord, this is taking too long. So I just put the videos up first, get the audios on. And now the videos are playing weeks before the audio. And honestly, people like it better because now they're out there sharing the videos and doing everything. And maybe I don't get as much traffic on the audio platforms, but people like to see that visual.
Mhm.
Maybe you have a face for radio, you know,
I do.
but people still want to be able to visually see who it is behind the mic.
Right. But and then people like, I mean, when I started in 2020, my first one, which was Inner Edison podcast, besides the radios. So in 2020, Steve Sims was like, "You need to do another podcast." Steve Sims is no longer with us as of a
Mhm.
few weeks ago, but he was like, because I told him, I said I want to do something totally different than the mortgage industry, and I came up with my wife came up with the name Inner Edison. Your greatest confidence come from your greatest defeats, and I actually had my first guests were, Rob Angel from Pictionary and other people like, I mean, just, usually the podcast starts with, just everybody, in that's around. But I got lucky because I go to Steve Sims, his stuff, and then he's like, tell all the people on stage, if they ask you to be on their podcast, you have to be on their podcast. And so I got so many people from that. And that it took off. It was in the top 1% of all podcasts in the world. And then about 2.5, 3 years into it, I was like, okay, my whole thing was about failures, businesses. You got to talk about your failures. When Rob Angel talked about Pictionary, I asked him about his business partners. How did you pick your business partner so that you don't fail? And he talked about that. And it was amazing. So I do a different take than other people do when they talk to people. I'm a little different, as you know, just like you're a little different. Um, it's true. We are. And that's why we do well. We ask questions other people won't ask.
Right.
Right? They're
Well,
afraid
and
to
we just
ask.
have fun with it. We have a conversation. It's not about, I need you to answer these 10 questions.
Don't ever send
Nobody
me 10
cares.
questions. Yeah.
We just have a conversation.
Yeah. People ask me, "Oh, what questions are you gonna ask?" I don't know because we haven't started it yet. And you haven't said something that and people go I remember a few people like, wow, you actually listen when you interview people. Yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to ask a question, have them make the answer, figure out what they talked about, and then see if there's anything in there you want to dive deeper in and go from there. But a lot of times people just think, okay, here's my question. I was on one even in the last year, and it was like, it was the funniest thing. Guy was from Asia, and he's just asking these questions, and that's all he kept asking. When, it's like, okay, that's the way you do it, but that's not how I do it. I have a conversation with my people.
But you're on podcasts constantly, and I think you said you're on what 15 of them this
I
week.
do about yeah. Yeah, so,
Like,
yeah. My own personal, I do it with radio, it's like 12 to 13 a week, and then I try to add in other people's podcasts. And people, how do you do it? Well, again, it has to do with things, like you said, systems.
mm,
One of the things I'm working on right now is to get my system down exactly after 5 years, being on the show, but on doing actual podcasting myself. I think I would say I've been in 3.5 years of doing it. I now know exactly what works. If you're
mhm,
going to cut it up into 3 5-minute segments, two of those. You need three shorts, and then you have to have those uploaded,
yeah,
and you have to have your regular one uploaded also. But you want to have all those other ones so that they get additional stuff. You have to post stuff on social media, all the stuff that I might not be doing on a regular basis, but you should be doing. But the most important thing is if you say you're going to drop your show on a certain day you'd have to do that. Period.
yeah.
Consistency, because what I was trying to get back to with Edison, I stopped it for 6 months, and I can't get the downloads I used to have yet.
Yeah, when I started this program in 2018, I recorded 33 episodes and then I paused because I didn't know if anybody was listening. Nobody was giving me feedback. And 6 months went by, and people are like, "Hey, Rob, when are you doing the podcast? Did you
Yeah.
stop it?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not a quitter." So it's like, get back into it. And back then, I was recording one a week, and if someone didn't show up, I'm like screwed. I'm reaching out, scrambling. I'm like, "No, I'm not doing that anymore." So now I batch record, between 8 and 12 of them, and then just filter them out as I need to, and it works better for me. That's my system. Whether or not it works for other people, I can recommend that that's how they do it, but do they listen? No.
Well, you gotta think about it. If you only do 1 a week, that's only 52 a year you need.
Mhm,
Right, so I have 4 months recorded already that I'm behind, that not behind, but I record 2. So here's how I do it. Tuesdays, I record 2 Helping the Brave.
mhm,
1:30 and 2:30 Pacific time. And then Wednesday, 1:30 and 2:30, I do my Inner Edison, both, podcasts. And I only record those days for those shows. And people will go, I can't make those days. Can you make any changes? No, those are the only days I record. Guess what? They find a way to show up
mhm,
somehow. And if they can't because of some reason, I'm sorry, but that's because of my schedule.
mhm,
That's how it is, period. And there's no ins around, because people don't understand. I do another one from 8:30 every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That is a live from the radio show, and we talk about local real estate and other stuff. And we have a ton of agents and loan officers watch that from us, and clients and everything else. And we get, it's in the top 1% of all daily podcasts, and that's only been really uploading in the last year.
mhm.
And if you're going to start a podcast these days, you want to start a daily. And people are going to say, but that's crazy. And daily to me is Monday through Friday. Saturday and Sundays are not daily. That's
Yeah,
additional. Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah,
the reason is, in order to get the volume you need up there to be in front of all these people on the top, if you only do 52 a year, to get to 300, that's 6 years.
yeah, yeah,
But if you
and
do
it's
daily, you get to there almost in a year.
yeah, but, you know, I I played the long game with my podcast. I didn't realize it was gonna take this long to get where I am. And now that AI is out there, it's picking it up, and it's telling people, and when they search eHeroes or Rob Anspach, it's showing up and it's giving me authority. That's great. But had I did it on a daily basis, and the thing is, before this show, I used to do a YouTube do a daily video. It was only a couple minutes long, and I did that for a whole year. And there's hundreds of videos there that when you look back, and I was reporting on all kinds of stuff. But I needed to stay focused and focused on entrepreneurs, not just what was happening in the news. And I think that's what happens to a lot of people. They get on, they create a podcast, and now I like to interview people, especially entrepreneurs, because it's up my alley. But people, they don't know how to interview. Then they get distraught, they get frustrated, and then like, oh, I spent all this money, but I'm just going to give up. Keep going.
Yeah, I did for a talk at one of Steve's things. It was the 1023 of podcasting. Most podcasts, 80% of the podcasts fail by the 10th episode.
Yeah.
And then another 10% of that, of a total 100, it's gone by the 23rd episode there. And so if you can stick around to the 23rd episode and on, you're going to be in that 110% that stays there and keeps going. And so what people don't realize is if I start a podcast today, there's a lot of podcasts, but there's a lot of podcasts that are doing nothing. They haven't posted in forever
Yeah.
because people don't realize it's time consuming. It costs money. Who's going to edit it? Who's going to do this? Who's going to do that? Is that going to
For me, I don't do much editing. I mean, I do put the logo up and our names and web URLs and but I have a system and I can edit that down to probably 20 minutes takes me to edit, a podcast episode. Whereas, a lot of people are like, well, I got to take this out. Oh, he said a bad word. I got to take this. Screw that.
well, there's things like there's so many things now that could take that stuff out. Like I use Podcastle.
Mhm.
So I can do both my shows upload within an hour, right? If I do it myself. And that's editing, meaning I put in music and I put in an opener and close that I record just for that one episode. I talk about, because I use this thing called Cast Magic. I drop the MP3 in there and then it will transcribe it. It will tell me the description for Apple, a description for YouTube. It gives me all the stuff I ever need within a 2 minutes that I can copy and paste over, which if we did it through any other AI, it would take a little bit longer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can do all that stuff, upload it, and be done with it in no time. And I took that over from somebody else who was doing all my podcasting, all the stuff before our industry had a downturn in October of, I don't know, 3 years ago, whatever it was. And it's been a while. Whenever interest rates went up 5%, that our industry took a hit, and we just weren't making anything close to any. I went
Well,
from
and the thing is
transactions
that,
to
and
free.
I hear this a lot. Rob, you need a podcast that can be monetized. And I've never monetized eHeroes. For me, it was just more education. It was for the benefit of the entrepreneur. Now I have gotten back end deals.
Right.
People have been on my podcast. Hey, Rob, can you help me write my book? Can you help me SEO? Can you help my clients out?
That's
And that's how I've
monetizing.
gotten a lot of business, and I think that's how you've done it.
That's monetizing.
Well, it is monetizing, but a lot of people say, well, Rob, you got to got to have graphics in the back that flash. You got to have, some call to action. You want sponsors. I don't want to do any of
It
that.
just it depends on what the plan is. I tell people start a podcast to build their business.
Yeah.
That's why you start it. If you're trying to be an influencer or one of those people, it's going to take forever.
Oh yeah.
I interviewed a guy who he does a daily podcast. It's not a interview show. It is it's like he reads he reads the stuff. It's audio only, and he has 1.5 million downloads a month. And then what he eats daily, so he has 1,000 episodes so far that he's uploaded. And the reason it does well, it's a history show, so
Mm.
it's about different things that you always want to know about. Would I listen to it? No, but somebody does, and
Somebody.
1.5 million people do on a monthly basis because they and he's at the point now where it's monetizing really well. And because what you don't understand, even if you upload it through Libsyn or a lot of these places where you used to have a lot of upload downloads before they would let you monetize it. No,
Mhm.
they automatically add the stuff in now automatically. You sign
Wow.
up. So now all my podcasts have commercials in them and everything else, but I just upload it and they put the commercials in it.
Mhm.
You don't make a ton of money unless you have a lot of downloads. But
Yeah.
it's like YouTube. You get to so many that you can monetize. Well, $10 checks are not that big.
No, and I just looked and I was getting on average about $15 a month from Facebook, and I'm like, and now I just got slapped with 5 violations dating back a year and a half,
Yeah.
and they weren't even mine. They were because I managed companies, and I'm like, "I didn't even create this stuff. I just posted it or had it auto posted, and I'm getting slapped. Now I can't get my $15." And then I went on Facebook, and a bunch of people are complaining about the same thing, and I'm like, "Is Facebook getting that trivial that they don't wanna pay out $15 to people?"
Yeah, I don't know. I just, my whole goal is just I like interviewing people, and people. I was told by somebody that I I'm going to say it again. Steve Sims, because he was my coach for a while. He's like, "What do you do now, Ed?" I have no idea. And he's like, "You tell people stories across multiple mediums." And I'm like, "Okay, that's exactly what I do." In the mortgage industry, now radio, on podcasting. I was in a documentary, and
Nice.
yeah, and what's weird is I was at Traffic and Conversion a couple years ago. Do you know Traffic and Conversion? Okay,
Yeah, I went, I think it was 2017. It was in San Diego.
yeah. So
I didn't pay. Went
I
in
didn't
as
pay
a
either.
guest.
I went too, but as his guest, and Brian was there. I think if it was at that time, and I think it was 2020 or 2021, and he introduced me some documentary people, and and then I was like, "Hi, how you doing?" Big deal. And then later I saw him in the VIP, and we were bullshitting, and they were like, "You have a radio show?" And she's like, "Well, we're doing a documentary about real estate, how people make money in real estate. I'd like to have you in the documentary." And it was put on by a big company, and I'm like, "Okay, sure." Can you? And she's like, "Can you be down here on Saturday?" And I'm like, "I had plans to leave that day, fly home." So I still kept those. I'm like, "Yes, I can be here." So I flew home, and then I jumped on this jet suite thing into Burbank. And then fortunately, I couldn't just rent a car because at that little jet suite, you had to rent an expensive car. So I'm like, if I'm going to have to rent an expensive car, give me a Range Rover. And actually, when I got off the plane, they're like, we don't have the G wagon you asked for, but we do have this BMW, and it was some ridiculous thing that I would have killed myself in. So I'm like, do you have like a Range Rover or something? And so yeah, but I did that, went straight over. It was in Huntington Beach. So I flew in, landed, got over there, sat down. They interviewed me for 2 hours, and they put an hour and a half of my interview in the show.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you couldn't have done that without not only systems, but, the opportunity to say yes, because a lot of people would have blown it off.
Right. Well, the whole thing was, like he said, I opened the door. You're the one who walked through it and did everything else, because I could have said, no, I can't make it. And from that, I can't post that documentary because it was done by Jeff Hayes Films. It was done for the Avengers in LA, which is a real estate company that's I can't think of his name. Big kid that sold his company at 19, went public, the whole 9 yards. It was he wanted to know because he was creating a real estate company and a mortgage company, and so but it was out there, and it was sent to a ton of people. I actually got a couple clients from it.
Wow.
Yeah, but I'm probably the only mortgage broker or any mortgage person who could say I was in a documentary about real estate and finance.
And I don't know a lot of uh, mortgage brokers like yourself that have multiple podcasts.
No,
Maybe
nobody's
they have
dumb enough.
one, maybe they have, they guest on a few of them, but they don't do it at the level that you do it.
I do it because I wanted to get to a point where I didn't care. I think it was, I forget who it was, but they were like, once you get to a point, Brad Lee said it, once you get to a point where you just don't care anymore, that's when you know you've made it. And when we say we don't care anymore, what we mean is we care about the product, we care about what we talk about. We just don't care if we make a mistake.
Yeah.
It's about, we want to get that information out there because I've made many of them, even my radio and other stuff. My co-host, like, yeah, you said that great today, didn't you? Yeah, so did you. Why don't you keep
Mhm.
reading that shit over there? Anyway, excuse my language.
Oh, and then I look back on some of my episodes, even going back to 2018, and I weighed a lot heavier back then. I think I was close to 250, and now I'm like 194. And I can't blame it on the pandemic because but it was just not only that. I love what I do. I love talking to people. I love helping people just like you do. And for me, it was never about the money. And people are like, well, wow, you're an entrepreneur. Everything's about the money.
No, help
You know,
people, money will come.
I've produced 60 some books. It's not about the money because you don't make money just selling books.
No.
It's about and I talk about the back end a lot, but handing out a book to somebody or telling people you're on a podcast, showcasing them, that authority and what you do
Mhm.
helps generate income and sometimes you just don't know where it comes from. And I had somebody from Norway find one of my books and hire me, and
Oh,
I was
really?
coaching them on a monthly basis. You just never know.
Well, that's like this with podcasting. Everybody asks me, "Do you have a course? When are you going to have a course out?" And finally, I got tired of saying, "Okay, yeah, I'll have a course out." So I have the website ready to go. I have all the funnels, everything. I just have to finalize the last few things. They'll be up and running, and it's going to be Pod. So it's called Pod Veteran, right? Because I'm a veteran and I'm also a veteran of being a podcaster. So
Hmm.
yeah,
Oh,
so
and but you have, I think you have what, 4 or 5 podcasts?
I have the radio show that also is uploaded as a podcast. So I don't know if you count that as two or one. So we'll go one there. The daily real estate jerky daily. So that's the radio show's real estate jerky. We give you something to chew on, and then we have real estate jerky daily, which is our morning one that we turn into a podcast. Then I have Inner Edison podcast, which is your greatest confidence come from your greatest defeats. Then I have Helping the Brave, which is the one thing that I'm really serious about, which is it's a podcast for veterans once we take the uniform off. And then I do Aces 53 with Brian Galke, who is the facial guy. And Aces 53, when I was in college, my instructor said, remember 4 aces and a joker, and it had to do with sales. Attitude, commitment, enthusiasm, and smile is what you bring to the table in sales. That joker is that unique ability you have naturally or you learn. Well, I sold by the phone. I had no idea I had a deep voice. And now I know why when I was at my company and we'd send out packages and back in the day how we did it, I would get 90% of my packages back and close 90% of my transactions. And it had to do with the connection I made plus the fact that I had a good voice to talk to them.
Yeah. I'm honored because I've been on, I think, 3 of them, Internet Anderson, Helping the Brave, and Aces, and I'm just amazed that you bring so much enthusiasm and energy to each one. And but Helping the Brave is I think probably one of your greatest strengths, not only as a veteran, but what you're doing in that space, helping others. And you know, veterans. My son's still in the army, and he loves it, and he'll probably retire and get his 20 years. And but I know so many soldiers who have retired from the military, and they still don't have a connection with the world.
Yeah.
They're in the military. Everything is systematized, like we try to do here as an entrepreneur, but they rely so much on that system that when they get into the real world, they don't know how to cope. And so I like your podcast for that because you have so many new and unique guests on there that they're always willing to help, and to me that's probably one of your greatest podcasts.
Oh, thanks. From there, I mean, because let's bring up two different things. From there, I started this thing called Operation Firewalk, which is a firewalk. So, interviewed a guy, Dave Albin, who worked for Tony Robbins for 20 years as his fire captain. But that's not how he started with the guy. He was an alcoholic and he was going through the program. And then he went to walk on fire with Tony. And then he started volunteering and they found out his background as he was a veteran and he used to do this kind of stuff. And so they asked him to be the fire captain. Well, he had a kid and a wife, and they're like, "Okay, well, just bring him with you, and you can just homeschool him."
Wow.
So yeah, so he was interviewed by somebody else who said, "Have you ever done a firewalk for veterans?" He goes, "No, but I want to do it." They tried to put it together, had issues, kind of the same issues we had, but I work. I'm one of those guys. I never give up. I said, "Hey, I'm in. Let's do it." And I set it up for April of April 12th and 13th of we're in what, 25, 24 was the first one we did. It's a 2-day event. It was supposed to be a 1-day event, but we then added the first, the second day, just to have the people who were involved go through the same process so they understood. Basically, we had a motivational speaker. We had the guy, Dave Sanderson, who was the last guy off the plane that went in the Hudson.
Hmm.
He got everybody off. He spoke. It was amazing. And then after that, we actually walked on coals, just like a Tony Robbins event. And the reason I say I like that because the guy worked for Tony Robbins, so I can say it like that. And then we did it again this last year in 25, 1 day, and it was another great event. We had a veteran who's been dealing with PTSD his whole life, still dealing with it, but he here local does he did veteran center for the local colleges, two of them, and then we had another gentleman who on 9/11, Bobby Seen. He had both towers fall on him, and he was back there the next day helping getting his people out. And he told about the story and everything else. It was pretty. It was pretty. It was a good event.
Wow.
So we're going to do it again in 26. But what we're doing differently is we're moving it to probably the weekend before or the weekend after Veterans Day. We haven't figured it out yet. We wanted it closer in the month of Veterans Day. Because we have it now in May and April, which in where I live, Modesto, California, it can either rain or be super hot.
Yeah.
And the problem is it's so late at night before it gets dark. We have to do it till 8:30 and then walk around that time. And people are like, this has been 3-4 hours. So we want to condense it into a couple hours. And the only way
Hmm.
to do that is go earlier in the day, and so it has to be moved to where it's darker earlier.
Oh, and it's a little cooler in September and
Well, actually, we're gonna do it, it's, November is
November.
the yeah, so and that's the other thing I just ran into is I didn't realize that in 2019, President Obama created, its Veterans and, Military Families Month was a proclamation that was put into place. So each year, they have to put a proclamation in for November to be that. So I'm putting together and because we talked about we were on another podcast here, we were talking about ChatGPT. Well, I found all this out through deep research and everything through that now I put together a whole uh, I'm gonna do a petition. I already got the site ready, almost ready to go. My whole thing is to get that to where it is actual law, so that November is always Veterans and Military Month, not just Veterans Day. We actually have a month.
And see, without systems, without and AI has really come a long way with helping everybody,
Yep.
especially entrepreneurs, systematize what they're doing. But I'm still amazed that there's entrepreneurs out there that haven't embraced it. That they're so against it. They don't want to have anything to do with AI. They think it's the devil. And I'm thinking, really? Have you tried it?
I look at it's like the internet. You know what I mean? And they said the internet was going to take over everything and destroy all these different, and I was like, no. And I said, no, it's just another form of direct marketing. That's all it is. And that's the same thing here. It's just going to help us get better at what we do. But before I forget, you were talking about how veterans, we lose our purpose when we get out.
Mhm.
And from that event, when I was president of my Rotary, I had a gentleman come over that helps vets in prison. He was in prison for 23 years. Created a program so vets would never go back into prison because he says if you don't deal with your PTSD, you're going to either kill yourself or go to prison because it's the same thing as killing yourself. And so he has a TED talk and he talks about we need a boot camp out like we have a boot camp in. And I heard that so many times at this last event that I had. I brought it up a few times that I actually created a thing called Civ Ops Academy, and it's going to be that. And
Yeah.
it's in the infancy right now. So when I got done with the event, I went "Boo," and then threw it into ChatGPT so it could write it for me, and I have a whole site ready to go, but I'm not ready for it to go. And so many people want to get involved with doing this that I interviewed on one, and this is all from podcasts, right?
Mhm.
I just said this all came from my podcast. It did. The firewalk came from the podcast. The Civ Ops came from the fire, because the guy I interviewed the guy regarding. So he was talking about how when he came back and what happened. He's like, the problem is if you take a Bradley and paint it like a school bus, it doesn't know it's a school bus. It'll still go out there and rip up the roads. And that's the problem with vets is we're a tool of war. We come back. We have not undone that. We're still that tool of war, and no one's helped us get through that. And that's why we need it. So one of the companies I interviewed was called Learn It. They've been around forever, teaching people how to use computers and everything else. and all the software involved, and they're willing to give all their courses through this program for free.
Wow.
And that's just
I'm
everybody wants to do so much. Yeah.
I'm
I
I'm
inter
amazed. I'm amazed at the amount of homeless vets that are out there that, the systems failed them. And and they get in trouble, they go to jail because they're homeless. Where the police, who also some of them are vets, but they don't know how to deal with that PTSD that a homeless person has. So they just throw them in jail. And to me, there has to be better rules, better understanding, better patience for vets.
I mean, the reason the vets who have PTSD are on the streets is because 'cause they're more comfortable being outside. They don't wanna
Mhm.
be inside. And until they're ready to deal with that, you can't help them. And as I find from interviewing so many people I've interviewed on Helping the Brave, that most vets will ruin every relationship they have, and then will eventually go get deal with their PTSD. And as I found with myself, I had some stuff from I was not combat, so I didn't think I was able to go do the stuff because it's a stupid thing, right? That we feel as veterans. Well, I didn't go in combat. I don't have the right to complain and all this stuff. No, it's not true. What I went through was more than what you normally see in combat. Because as a corpsman, I worked physical therapy during the day, but I dealt with burn patients and some other stuff, and I've seen some really bad trauma that I had to deal with and take care of. But I also worked as an EMT, which on basis you're a paramedic. You're not just an EMT, and we used to get called to the I-5 down in San Diego off the
Mhm.
base because of where we were. And so what I'm getting at is I didn't deal with it. I was a workaholic, exerciseaholic, and then finally when the kids are gone, everything else, it's the fact that my industry dropped so drastically and I had so much free time that you start thinking about this stuff. So I'm going through for my, and I didn't mean to bring us up in here, Rob, but we were talking about helping the brave. But I'm trying to tell people that, I talk to individuals all the time. Go get help.
Mhm.
You ask if you were pinned down, you would ask for air support. What's the difference? And then, so I had to take my own advice. And finally, I started reaching out through the VA to get through this system and deal with this PTSD that I'm dealing with.
Well, and the thing is that, and for me, podcasting, writing books is my therapy. No,
Mhm.
I wasn't in the service, but a lot of my friends were. I see what they go through, and so podcasting is my outlet. I get to interview a lot of great, brilliant people. Same with creating books. But I'm putting my thoughts, my emotions into these books. It's how I vent. And yeah, I think with you doing podcasting, not only does it keep your mind focused, but you're also it does create therapy for you.
Oh, definitely. But also the connections you make, right?
Mhm.
When I got out, there wasn't Facebook. There wasn't even MySpace when I got out. All right. So there was no way to stay connected unless you had a phone. Well, when I went in the service, we didn't have cell phones. We had pay phones. We didn't,
Mhm.
it wasn't the same thing. We had Rolodexes, so, but nobody walked around with a Rolodex in their pocket like we do now. So for me, all the people I had connected with, I couldn't connect with anymore. So the podcasting allows me to connect with vets that I would never connect with or other people. There's so much I've gotten from my podcast. I think I've gotten more from podcasting than people have gotten from me.
Yeah.
If you understand, because interview people and you come across people that are like, "Wow, you can do that," in certain
Mhm.
things for my business, certain things for other stuff. And I interviewed 2 vets recently. They're the ones who write for Tom Clancy now.
Wow.
Yeah, I was like, "What?" I didn't know I didn't know any of that. Plus, they have their own series. They're in process for a book, a movie, a series, all these different things. They're 2 Navy veterans who started, one has been writing his whole life. They have in, but they met at a conference and they created this whole thing from it. But now they want to help other vets
Mhm.
and give back. And they're like, "Hey, when you get that whole civ ops thing off the ground, let me know because we want to get involved." I'm like, "Okay, we'll get there." And that's the problem is you come up with all these ideas and all this stuff. It's getting those people to help you through that process.
Yeah. Yeah, and but with and I want everybody to understand is that yes, we if you listen to the people while you're doing these interviews, you can come up with some brilliant ideas, but you also have to have systems in place to allow you to get these ideas to fruition. If you don't, it's not helping anybody.
Yeah.
So, it's important that not only are you listening, but also taking action.
And you can't do it alone. And I'm in California, which we can't hire contract here in California because they're employees first. The contracts never. So I have to go out of state. Well, I came across a company called, if it's okay if I say it, what is it called? Level Nine, and they do this thing called a pod, which is instead of having just one VA, virtual assistant to help you, they you have a project manager who whatever you need done.
Hmm.
Right? So you go in and you say what you need done. And so to create my website, and they were so what are they? 20 hours a month is 500 some dollars, and 40 hours a month is 600 some dollars.
Wow.
So I figured $17 an hour is basically what you're paying. I created a whole website for $170. You know, funnels, and yes, I come up with the verbiage.
Hmm.
So I here's another thing. Had a podcast. A guy was in marketing forever with the big companies, and he was all about the customer journeys at the big company he was at. Product. I think it was uh, P&G, different companies, and he created. Then one of the people who used to do websites for them, he bought that company, and that's what he went and did. Well, he was like, nobody does the customer's journey in doing websites or that kind of stuff. And that was their big thing. So he said all this stuff. Well, I transcribed that podcast, grabbed that information, and created a GPT and prompt in chat GPT. And now it's called the customer, the audience. And I drop a website in there and it tells you everything wrong with it and how you should word it this way so that people are, so I have a mortgage company. I do reverse mortgages. I do VA loans. 80% of the stuff is veterans. Reverse mortgage is 10%, and then business owners 10%. Well, if you went to a website and had that on there, people go, "Oh, I don't know this." I separated them out into three separate entities,
Hmm.
so those people could go to the right place, and they know exactly what's for them, not just one page that has this for this and this for this and this for this. I broke it out. Well, and that's what it helped me write all those words, and I was like, "Holy cow, what a difference."
Hmm.
If you actually know who your client is and you speak to that client only, it's a night and day difference.
Yeah, right on my website, I put the reason why I created Unspot Media. I put a guarantee because I didn't have a guarantee for like 24 years, and because I thought I can't control Google or Facebook or anything, but there are certain aspects of what I do I can guarantee, and I put down all the things that I want or expect out of a client. Now, if you're here for me to build you funnels and do this I don't want you as a client because to me that drives me insane. You know, you can get somebody else to do, but
No, you just need to hire that pod and you can just sit over
it
there.
just you know, by me getting more direct with who I
Yep,
want to interact with, I'm only getting those types of clients that fill out stuff.
yep,
And for me, there's too many people out there, too many entrepreneurs that want any client that breathes. To me, the cheaper the client, the more hassles involved. I
yep,
want people that are willing to spend what I'm charging. Otherwise, I don't even want to get out of bed.
yeah. And so the big thing for me is you need to know who, what they call avatar these days, which I call your perfect client because I'm
Hmm.
old school. You need to know who that is and you need to drill all the way down. And it's not saying you can't take other people who come to you,
Right.
but you're only speaking to that one person. And so they're only hearing you. Yes, they have a friend or somebody else like, "Hey, can you help them?" Sure, I'm not going to throw money away, but it's not who I'm going after. And
Yeah.
you just need to know that. And if you can niche it down even more than that, like say I do veterans, but if I can do veteran business owners, that's even more of a niche, and they can talk to that person even more so. And I would come to find out doing my helping the brave is there's so many veterans that have businesses. 50% of veterans have businesses. And so I don't want to say it's turned into a business show, but there's a lot of stuff about business now on there. A lot of stuff about writing your own book, a lot of stuff about all these different things and people transitioning and how they got into these places.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a lot of people out there that want to hear the stories of military personnel. And some of them, they can't tell their story to anybody because of their classification. I get it. But people have to understand that's therapy too for those that write a book or do a podcast. They want to share their stories. And the government comes in, no, you can't, and then all that PTSD builds up and they need therapy. And so, yeah,
It's
sometimes
like
it's better to.
I think the second or maybe third or fourth on Helping the Brave was an Anthony Stephen Malone. He was a guy that went into prison over in, I think it was Turkey for us, because they thought the Al Qaeda was working out of this prison, and he used to go undercover kind of stuff, as you know, but he was British, and they hired our generals. Go, hey, will you do this for us? So they put him in there, and he's undercover in there, and he finds out that Al Baghdadi, top number two, is person's in there, and they would all come in on Visitors Day on Sunday, and they plan out their attacks.
Mm,
So he is the one who actually supposedly found out where Bin Laden was originally, and then that other lady is the one who verified it, from what I understand. But he was on the podcast, and I interviewed him first on Inter Edison, going because he was referred to me by somebody we were talking about, and I was like, "What?" All I said was, "Wow." First podcast, all I was like, "Wow, wow," because he's telling all these stories and then whatever we went through. I brought on Helping the Brave. That was at the time where I had three other co-hosts, and their mouth was just wide open the whole time. I was like, I told you," And so I mean, that's the story, and he couldn't talk about that for the longest time because it was classified.
mhm.
And then I had a guy recently who he was the oldest person to go into military. What age do you think he was? He went in the army as a veterinarian.
Wow.
And
I don't know, maybe in the
yes,
50s.
57. Yep.
Wow.
Had to get a waiver, and got a waiver, and he was in for 10 years, but he was deployed 4 or 5 times. But he took care of the dogs, the trainer dogs.
That's
So,
because they probably needed them.
of course,
They
yeah,
used
that's
to
always
now.
that way. It's always doctors and veterinarians who can go in when they're old after they've had a career. Everybody else are like, "No, you're too old and fat. You can't do it. You're out of here."
So, where do people find you? Where are all your podcasts centralized?
You can just search Ed Parcaut. So actually, edparcaut.com will have all my podcasts. Um, but you can just search Ed Parcaut, and I come up everywhere because I'm the only Ed Parcaut out there.
Yeah, I did, and you came up in ChatGPT, you came up Perplexity. So, you
Is it-
and that's the thing, everybody, is that when you have a podcast, when you have video, when you share all that out to social, the AI is gonna reward you and start compiling all that information so that when people do search on AI or even Google, you're gonna show up.
yeah. I mean, I use ChatGPT to write my bio and a bunch of other stuff constantly, and add this stuff to me and everything we do. So it knows everything about me, and it shared it out also.
Mhm,
So that helps a lot too.
yeah. So we're running out of time, but everybody, go over to edparco.com. I'll put the link in the description there, and listen to all his podcasts. Just spend a week and binge listen to everything. Helping the Brave, Inner Edison, Aces.
Aces 53 is
53.
only on YouTube.
It's
So
only on
Brian's been
YouTube.
doing yeah, Brian and I've been doing that for almost 3 years, and we have not uploaded a single episode. It's only on it's a live only, and it's on YouTube under Aces 53. We need to get some people over there to subscribe because we just have a good time talking to people. We don't care.
Yeah, I was just on it, and it was just incredible because it's just fun.
Yep.
You know, so
Thank you,
everybody,
sir.
make sure that what you do is fun, and we'll see you on the next episode. Adios.
Thank you, sir.